Malachi Flynn made history against the Atlanta Hawks. In a loss to Atlanta Hawks, he scored 50 points off the bench, which makes him only the third player in NBA history to score 50 off the bench. So this is very rare. It hardly ever happens. A guy will get 50 points off the bench. I have to be honest, I didn't watch this game, obviously, because it's not on national TV. And to watch this game, you have to be a hardcore fan of either the Pistons or Hawks. Both teams are not worth watching. So I didn't watch it, but I did see his 50-point game uploaded on YouTube, obviously, the highlights of it, every bucket he scored. Just judging by the way he scored most of his points, he wasn't really challenged a lot on most of his jump shots. I've counted there was only 3 shots that were really contested. But outside of that, he had a bunch of easy layups to the hole, a bunch of easy mid-range pull-ups, I would say, that weren't really contested. And he hit a few threes where he was just left wide open. So what this shows to me, especially when you look at his stats over his career, Malachi Flynn, I'm going to say it, and I'm just going to be honest about you. When you look at his stats, 5.2 points per game, 38 overall from the field for his career, 33% overall from 3 for his career. This guy is a very mediocre player. He shoots terrible percentages for a guard, just really bad percentages. It's why he's been struggling throughout his career if you look at his stats. But what this really shows to me is that anybody can score 50 in this current NBA. It's obviously not really a big deal anymore like it once was. I would say even I'll go back 10, 14 years ago, it was still a big deal to score 50 or more. But the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years now, it's really just not a big deal anymore. It seems like anybody can get it, and Malachi Flynn proved that. Just that it's just too easy now to have these 50-point performances. I just remember growing up during the 90s, you may be lucky to get 3 or 4 50-point performances during that era per season. It was just that rare. You didn't have guys getting that many games of 50 or more, but today you have too many. It just shows to me that these rules make it way, way too easy for these guys to score a ton of points. In return, it makes the game just less fun to watch. I like a game where it's competitive and the guy's actually challenged, where there's actually a lot of resistance to his ability to score. I think it makes the game just much more entertaining from an intensity perspective, and it challenges a player just to rise above just the obstacles and the challenge. So you get to see something more special when guys could do it back in the day when they were challenged, I feel. But today, it doesn't really mean anything. Can you honestly say any of these 50-point games or more are masterpieces that you would want to watch 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or 20 years from now that you would want to replay? Like back in the day, you look at Michael Jordan having that game where he scored 55 points against the Knicks during a regular season. That's still a classic worth watching because he was getting defended at the time by one of the best defensive teams in the league back when the rules were favored for defenses, and you saw how brilliant he was and how he was like a maestro getting whatever he wanted against that supreme defense. Today, if you watch any of these guys' great games, it's like they're scoring as traffic cones that it's not really interesting. It's like watching some tall kid beating up on a bunch of midgets at the park in basketball. So I just think stuff like this takes away from the game, and it's another reason why they need to bring back the old defensive rules. This stuff is kind of like a circus act now. It's gotten into a circus act, especially when you see guys cheering for a guy scoring 50 points in a loss. You saw Malachi Flynn's teammates jumping up and down, and they didn't even win the game. So that to me just shows you how terrible this era is when it comes to what I call this basketball scoring inflation.